Hello everybody, today I'm going to be tying a WD-40. This is a really cool pattern. The application I'd probably be most likely to use it in would be if it was about February or March and the blue-winged olives weren't quite in the system yet, in the river system you're fishing, and you got those big spring midges hatching. I'd probably be fishing this fly because it's a really good cross in between a Baetis and a midge. The Thorax looks more like a midge, but it has a tail, so it's a Baetis. But yeah, super effective, nice little cross in between a couple different bugs, and super effective. So let's get into it. For the hook, I'm using a TM code 2488 in a size 18. You can tie this from a size like 18 down to like a 24 if you wanted to, but. And then for thread, I am using some A. Uni thread in Rusty Dun. And that is just kind of like an Adam's gray color. Nothing too special. You can mess around with the thread color and stuff. It's not too specific. So once you attach your thread right behind the eye, you can clip the tag. And the first material we're going to use is going to be our tail. And that is going to be a mallard flank feather. Today I'm using it in wood duck gold. You can use it in olive black. You can use it in white. It doesn't matter too much. Mess around with the color variation. But I think the yellow and gray look nice together. So you're going to want to strip all the fluff off the bottom so you have like just the kind of prime feathers on there. And you're going to bundle up a nice tail. The thing I noticed with the mallard flank is that the tips are kind of funny, so you almost want it to look oversized because it never looks as it doesn't look as thick once it's tied in. So you can see I got quite a bit of fibers, but the tips don't all align, so I'm just gonna pull any of those short ones out. But yeah, so get maybe a little bit oversized for what you think you need for this fly. And once you do that, you can lay it right on top of the shank and take a loose wrap, or a few loose wraps, and then you can pull those fibers through until you think it's the right length for the tail. I think right there's about right. And I'm going to wrap this down to the bend, and I'm going to try to bundle up those fibers as I go. With my thread. Kind of hard to explain, but if you can see what I did there. Kind of bundling them up as I go. And then I'm just going to resume my thread back up to where I tied in that mallard flank. And then I clip this off. You can keep this for later if you want to. It'll be useful later, but I usually use a new bunch for the legs and stuff. So once you do that, we can tie in our rib. And the rib actually isn't included on the original fly, but I like ribs. I think it looks nice. You can use some wire, but today I'm going to use a piece of black super hair. I think it's a little less obtrusive considering that the fly didn't even have a rib to begin with. But I think it adds some nice segmentation to it. So just take a loose wrap and pull that through until you have the right amount. And take that super hair down back to the bend right behind that tail. Trying to keep the body nice and smooth. And once you get back up to retie everything in, you can start wrapping that super hair. Making sure to keep tension on this. Super hair, unlike wire, you kind of have to keep tension on it the entire time, otherwise it'll start to unravel, like so. So be sure to keep good tension on it while you're wrapping this. Trying to get an even, segmented body. Oh, slip down there. And then tying it off with a couple wraps. So then I'm going to clip that super hair off. And now I'm going to tie in all the materials for the thorax. Now something else that I like to do for this fly that isn't included in the original recipe is I like to use some pearl tinsel in medium. And it just adds a flashback to the fly. I think it looks nice. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of tinsel and just lay it right on top of the shank there and pull it through and resume back up the shank until, I don't know, what is that, maybe 30% mark of the hook. So, and that's laying right on top, so then you can fold that over later. So once we do that, we can tie in our second piece of mallard flank. I'm going to grab a new selection of feathers just because when it's longer, it's easier to work with. And these don't need to be bundled up as much because we're going to be tying this in by the butts for the thorax. So what I like to do is when you strip these, it's kind of rough, so I just like clipping off the bottom there and then kind of bundling it all up and then taking a loose wrap down on top of those fibers. And then once we have that, we're going to fold that over here in a second, like so. And the reason I like to tie those in by the butts is because then you kind of get a taper in those feathers. Because if you tie it in by the tips, it would be, you know, more scrawny towards the point. And you kind of want a nice, like, you want the thicker section to be towards the point because then everything's a taper. So it all looks nicer that way. And for the thorax, I am just using some Adams Gray Superfine. Just match your dubbing to your thread color for this Y. And unlike a lot of patterns, you're going to want probably more dubbing than you're used to compared to like other patterns because you're kind of trying to create a little dubbing ball, a chunky little thorax, and most Ys are trying to use the least amount of dubbing as possible. But so you can see I have a fair little dubbing noodle there. And once you do that, you can start wrapping your dubbing noodle, going all the way back to where that mallard flank is. And you'll notice I left a little ledge right there. There's a spot where there's no dubbing right behind that eye. And that's nice because it gets real busy here in a second once we fold all this stuff forward. So once you do that, you're going to bundle up all that mallard flank and take a loose wrap down on top of it. And then you can take another loose wrap and then fold it all back and take a wrap underneath the eye, kind of cleaning up any of those fibers. And we're going to leave it like that. And then we're going to fold that flash forward. Here, I'll get it so you guys can see it a little bit better. We're going to fold that flash forward like so. It's not quite even. Like so. And then we're going to take another wrap and then fold everything back again and sweep everything back. Now once we do that, we can clip the flash, and then we're going to take a wrap on top where we clip that flash off, and then we're going to take half of these fibers on either side and we're going to wrap them to imitate our legs. We're going to fold them back and wrap on top of them. And this can take a few tries sometimes, trying to get it so that mallard flank doesn't, so your thread doesn't slip off the mallard flank. So you're going to take a few wraps, and it's going to be kind of, you know, messy up there towards the eye. And once you're done securing that mallard flank, I like to just kind of do that same thing we were talking about, kind of cleaning that eye up with our thread, covering up all that mallard flank, all those loose fibers. Trying not to cover up the eye too much. You can see the eye's not obscured too much. And creating a nice little thread head. And once you do that, you can whip finish. A bird just hit my window. If you heard that. We can whip finish and clip the tag before we trim the legs. seat the knot, clip the thread, and then we are going to trim the legs. And I like to grab them both. Let me see so I can get it so you guys can see. And just... Oh, I can't do that. You guys can see it and get it right. But I'm going to fold the legs back and trim them right about a wing case in length. I missed a few there when I trimmed it. It's hard to get everything on camera and still tie a clean fly. But there you have it. A WD-40. This is like the full kind of souped up version. The base kind of standard version is just a tail, then a thread body, and then the thorax, and you don't even fold the legs back. You just trim it right behind the eye. I like folding the legs back because it kind of imitates the wing buds of a midge pupa or the legs of a beta nymph. Just kind of fills out the fly a little more. Here, I'll take that out real quick and flare the tail so you can see how long it is in comparison to the fly. So, you know, about a half shank in length for the tail. That could also be a shuck. If there's a midge hatch coming off, you could grease your leader and apply float into the fly, and the tail could be the shuck too, so, of the midge. But, yeah, super versatile, super effective, nice looking pattern. One thing to note, since we added that flash onto the wing case, we could put resin over the back. I haven't done it, but you could, you know, kind of like a Jujubatus, run resin up from the tail all the way up to the thread head. So, something to consider, but super effective. And yeah, I want to thank all you guys for watching and hope you find success with this fly out on the water. Have a good one.